Hey everyone, and welcome to 1.21 Gigawatts. I am Peter, that is Matt, and we talk about movies on this show. And it's been a while since we had one, actually.
Yeah.
When was the last time we did a Gigawatts for a new movie?
Um, Sometime in the summer. I don't remember for what though.
Was it the summer? Did we not?
I want to say
Surely we did one in September. We had to have done.
maybe.
We had to have done. I can't remember what it was though. Which shows you. I mean, this is largely more because we had a busy month of other things happening rather than because there was no
Yeah.
movies to go see. Um,
Yeah.
because Matt had just about given in to go and see Venom.
That close, and then I was
Yeah.
like, nah.
Yes, yes. That was vacation and moving house back to back.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I never saw Venom either because if I wasn't doing it for this show, I wasn't seeing it. Because why? Why would I?
Smart. I think we made the right choice. So
Yes, although it made enough money anyway, the bastard thing. But anyway, we're going to talk about Overlord, which is the new Bad Robot production produced by J.J. Abrams, directed by Julius Avery, and it is a action, thriller, horror, tinge of sci-fi. We'll get into it, but we'll start spoiler free
yeah.
as we always do. We'll warn you in the middle before we go into spoilers, and that's how we'll roll. So, so the basic premise of the film, if you've not seen the trailer, is that it's World War Two, and it's right before D-Day, which I don't think I knew from the trailer actually, but it's right before D-Day,
No. Yeah.
and there's a troop falling in, American troops falling into France, and their mission is to take out this tower so that the planes can come in unhindered
hmm
for D-Day, and essentially they discover an evil Nazi lab that is bringing people back from the dead to make Nazi zombie soldiers, and that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
There you go.
This was. I hadn't seen this trailer until you were like, the Overlord trailer dropped. You need to watch it,
hmm
and then it became my most anticipated movie of 2018.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that reaction out of you. I was like, no, Matt, you should
Yeah.
watch this Overlord trailer. It's pretty
Yeah.
good. And then you were
Yeah.
like, holy shit, it looks amazing. Oh, this is day one.
Yeah.
We're doing it.
As we've been calling it, it's this year's Kong Skull Island for irrational expectations out of me on
Sure,
it.
I can see that
And
comparison.
yeah. And I tried to talk my wife into seeing this one, and she wasn't digging on the zombie vibes
Mm.
of, whatever these soldiers are or were and whatnot. So I went by myself, and early showing on a weekend. I had the theater basically to myself. Um, and oh boy, what an experience.
Yeah, it was me and like two other random gentlemen in my
hmm
showing. Very quiet.
Yeah.
I also went during the day though, intentionally
Yeah.
to have a quiet theater. I prefer
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah, I mean, there's certain movies that I don't mind seeing with big groups of people, like the Marvel movies, like seeing Infinity War with a big group. That's good, but like something that I was looking forward to, like this, it felt like I had my own private screening and I
mm,
could act as such, because there was numerous times I shifted forward in my seat as if having a 40-foot screen in front of me wasn't enough. I had to sit as far forward as I could because that's how much into the plot I was getting into. Um, and there's some jump scare moments that got
I
me
mean,
that you know,
this question seems irrelevant given what you just
uh,
said. But Matt, did you
uh,
enjoy Overlord?
oh, I thoroughly enjoyed Overlord. And it feels good too because I was worried anytime I get this like into wanting to like a movie, I'm usually let down. Um, but this delivered on every aspect that I could have asked for. The direction is pretty tight. The story is tight as well. Like it just everything meshed, and then you get to the actors, and everyone is cast so well, from the heroes in the troop to the evil SS officer, which I feel it's a double there. It's redundant. You can just evil and SS are the same thing at this point.
Oxymoron, I believe, is the.
Well, no, actually, more are two opposing things.
Oh, sure, okay.
Like like dry ice, I guess you could say. That's an oxymoron. Redundancy, you should say, because you can just
Okay.
say one or the other. But yeah, man, I wish this was a comic book. Like if this was a comic book, it'd be my favorite story. It says everything that I'm looking for. And how'd you like it, Pete?
Well, I mean, after that, how am I going to compete with that crushing praise. No, I liked it quite a bit. In fact, I was pleasantly surprised because I expected to like it. I think it was a lot tighter and solid than I was expecting going in.
Yeah.
I think it had more of a heart than I was expecting. It had better characters than I was expecting. Because the trailer made it feel like it was going to be this just balls to the walls, crazy things were happening. And it actually wasn't really that. But not in a disappointing way.
No.
It's that because the trailer made it look like they arrive in France and like they find the base in like Act 1 and then like, most of the movies in the base them looking around and stuff. It's not actually that at all. It's just it's more of a slow build than that. It's actually a good 2/3 into the movie before you see anything really crazy.
It's a straight up war movie. Like they hint at in the earlier acts something's going on in this small town because just how dead it is and it doesn't seem like just normal parts of war, but you never get like into the horror or sci-fi aspects until 2/3 in, like you're saying. So, and I appreciated that because
well, here's the thing. I would disagree with that to a point because I think it treats the actual war stuff in a more of a and through a horror lens. I would say there's a way that it was shooting some of this stuff early on that made it feel a bit more. What's the word here? I don't want to quite say demonic, but
no, it's the horrors of war. Like what I mean by like horror, I'm talking like
but
it was using the horror film language to describe war. You know, just like with the sudden outbursts of stuff.
Yeah, but not in the same way that because the horror of war is a common phrase that people use all the time, especially in movies. And it wasn't in that same sense. It wasn't in that traditional sense. After the first land, there's a shot at one point of like a forest with some hanging bodies in it, right? And this really stuck out to me as a horror movie shot. You know, it's the land's middle of the night, everything's in night. They play with the tension of being there in like, you know, occupied France, and you know there could be a Nazi around any corner. You could be stepping in a mine at any moment. Like it plays with the tension of that in a way that I feel like. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that it is a B sci-fi horror movie that happens to be set in a war, but even the way it handles it from the start doesn't feel like a war movie.
Okay, see, I felt like it felt like a war movie. Like, this is how I wanted Saving Private Ryan to feel. Like, not the crazy Nazi lab and whatnot, but like the tension. Because I rewatched Saving Private Ryan a couple years ago, and I always remember you describing it as saccharine. And I was like, oh, it's been forever since I'd seen it. So watching it from adult eyes, because the only other time I'd watched it was when it was released in '98. Like, I understood what you meant there. It wasn't like as gritty as war should have been. And here I feel like they nailed that. And gritty, I guess, is the wrong word. But visceral. That's the better
visceral
word.
is a good word. The opening in the movie is definitely very visceral, and it kind of throws you in. But it all feels like set up for the main thing. It feels like because once we start talking about this town's a bit weirder, what's happening here, and they take up because they actually take up sort of refuge in this house, where our female lead Chloe lives, this French woman who ends up kind of helping them, and they kind of spend a lot of the movie in the house, and it's kind of scoping out this lab because the lab's underneath this
church.
This church, but it's got a tower specifically, which is where because the whole mission's to bomb this tower so that the
D-Day invasion.
All the aviation stuff's there basically.
Yeah. So they're gonna blow up the tower so they can't send the signal that the planes are coming for D-Day because the whole point of D-Day was to catch the Germans by surprise in Normandy because they thought that the Allied forces were going to land on any other number of beaches but not Normandy. So the fact that they went there and were able to get the drop on them. So I like that they played with actual history there. Like they're using D-Day as the. It's not really the inciting incident, but that's what's driving them first.
And it's just something to tie their mission into, so there's context for it more than anything else. And if and when they succeed,
it has stakes.
It has some kind of real world stakes. It's not a big deal, but it's kind of there. It's something.
Oh yeah, there was numerous times once we started getting like I don't say bogged down because it sounds negative, but we started getting into the Nazi lab stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but guys, we still got to blow up the thing. We still got to make sure D-Day happens. because we don't want to set up an alternate reality here. So I was still invested in that mission, so I feel like the creature zombie stuff was like icing on that cake, as far as I was concerned.
For me, it's a straight up B movie, and I mean
Hmm.
that as a compliment. It is a B movie. It is kind of schlocky. It takes itself just seriously enough, but there are moments of levity. There's moments of humor in there, um, but it is like a sort of straight up B movie, and it's actually something that I've not seen as much recently, and I've been kind of happy with this. And there was another movie I watched earlier this year that came out last year, called Brawl in Cell Block 99, where that is equally a straight up B movie, but it's one where the director took it really seriously and made a really well made movie. And I think this kind of falls into a similar category where, yeah, it's they're finding a lab where Nazis were making super soldiers that are bringing bodies back from the dead, right? It's kind of silly by its very nature. It's kind of silly, but it takes it just seriously enough that the characters are, because I think there's been a trend in movies the last like decade or so where anything remotely schlocky has to be taken with lots of tongue in cheek, right? And
Hmm.
sometimes that's the right call. Sometimes you have to tackle
Yeah.
certain things with tongue in cheek, and I'm kind of blaming the Marvel movies for this, where almost every single thing has to have the wisecracking characters. Um, maybe it's a new Halloween movie, but it has to have the wisecracking characters. Maybe it's whatever, but everything has to have that. And I kind of appreciated that this didn't. And there was a couple of moments of humor, but the humor came from different places. It wasn't the snarkiness. It wasn't that.
No,
It
it
was little.
was.
It was little moments of heart. It was connections between the characters. It was a little bit of growth. The arcs are very simple, but there's a few arcs for some characters. There's the main character, Boyce. He has an arc. There's an arc for Ford. There's an arc for
Yeah.
Tibbet, who's kind of the asshole guy who is constantly calling Boyce out and saying he's not built for this. Even he has a little bit of an arc. It's just enough, and it's one of these things where I think crappier movies that kind of like say, oh, we're B movies, we're just fun and schlocky, turn your brain off at the door. My big thing with that is that you shouldn't have to. The problem with a lot of these turn off your brain movies where that's what they say, oh, you should just turn off your brain and enjoy it. But this is the thing though, there was a time when a B movie would be a B movie because its concept was kind of, here, that's something fun and silly, let's
Yeah.
just do this. But it would still treat the script with the tact that a script should be taken with, in that it has an arc, it has a beginning, middle, and end. It has it has escalation throughout. It
Yeah.
builds up, it builds intrigue, and then it pays it off. And you maybe root for the characters, and then you fist pump when like some arcs pay off, and maybe the guy who thought was an asshole turns out to actually have a bit of a heart, or and so on and so forth. And you actually care a little bit. B movies can do that. The good ones do, and I would put that in this category. So
Yeah. Well, like Spielberg always describes Raiders, and that's like my favorite movie of all time, as a B movie. But it has all this prestige, 35 years later. We're up to what, 38 years later now, you know? Um, and because it was, nominated for Oscars and has a place in the, public consciousness, but it's still a B movie that never treats itself like a B movie, you know? And I feel like Overlord, I felt a lot of kinship to Raiders in that aspect, you know? And it's not just, good guys punching Nazis either, but it's the themes that are at play, and what's the cost of war, and what does it do to that person.
yeah, a lot of it's about how it changes the people who go there,
Mhm.
and because that's one of the big themes with Boyce's character, is that he is someone who barely made it through training, and he is someone who doesn't want to hurt anyone. And on the flip side, you've got like the sort of leader who's in charge of the group, Ford, who's played by Wyatt Russell, who
Corporal.
who I have to admit, early on in the movie, he was kind of rubbing me the wrong way a little bit.
Mhm.
He was feeling a little bit too generic for a little while.
Yeah.
In the way that he was supposed to be cool because he was quiet. And it's like, oh, we're supposed to think he's a badass because he's quiet. And then, when shit started going down, like, he's already dead, soldier, you keep moving or you're going to end up dead too. And I'm like,
Right.
you're kind of just like a walking stereotype right now. Like, there was nothing to him at first.
Yeah. Well, see, I picked up on that, like he had some form of PTSD because they mentioned like he was over in Italy and something had happened. Like they never really touched like why he's with them. Um, but we get the vibe that something happened to his
Yeah.
last crew of guys, and so it's really hardened him and it's calloused
Yeah, yeah,
him,
but what I'm
and
saying is I thought the performance was
uh,
a little bit too hammy and
yeah, yeah,
generic.
yeah, yeah. And so I appreciate what he was doing though. I don't know if it's just because he really reminds me of his dad, and I'm a big Kurt Russell fan. Um, and so he's just chewing on scenery in certain parts, uh, But I was a little annoyed at the beginning, like you were saying, because it feels like it's straight from, you know, uh, screenwriting program. But
Yeah.
I feel like he really progressed once we get to a certain point, uh, and I
He
like
got
that.
better as the movie went along. Like
Yeah,
I'll say that. Um, so now you have an interesting cast of characters who, admittedly, aren't super interesting to begin with, but get more interesting as the movie goes on. And it's largely because they do actually have kind of arcs where it's not so much that they're that interested in and of themselves, but they just, because they do have a story to go through, because they change by the end, there's something interesting to kind of explore there. Um, and the villains are proper villainous, they're proper evil, like
yep.
and I think one of my favorite things about this movie, just in terms of concept, is that one of my big things that I love about survival horror, and this is a term from video games, survival horror, like Resident Evil and stuff like that, and it's something I realized at some point the Aliens shares, and there's other movies that share it as well. But it's the idea of coming somewhere and it's okay, something weird's happened here. What is going on? And then slowly, sort of uncovering the mystery as to what has happened
Yeah.
here. And funnily enough, Resident Evil has a secret underground lab that caused everything.
There was a series that you wrote when we used to write for the same website, and I was your editor,
Mm,
on Resident Evil. And watching this movie, I was remembering things that, having not played those games, like the last Resident Evil I played was Resident Evil 2, for the PlayStation. So that's how long ago it was. But I was picking up on themes that I knew from reading your articles all those years
mm.
ago. Um, so I'm glad. I'm glad that because that's like your jam, Resident
Oh
Evil.
yeah.
I'm glad I was able to pick up on that, what they were, putting down.
Yeah, no, I was just I was thinking about it as I was watching the movie. It was kind of it was hitting some of those notes for me early on. No, I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun. I think
Mhm.
there's some great, mostly practical effects, which
Yeah.
is nice. Obviously, there's some CG here or there, but
Mhm.
the actual effects of the creatures, if you want to call them that, zombies
Yeah.
doesn't feel quite right because they're not exactly zombies
No.
either. They're undead because they're brought back from life or
Yeah.
death, but they're not zombies. Uh,
It's if you're familiar with comics at all, it's very like in Batman, the Lazarus Pit, that when they're brought back from death, they go to this insanity, and it's through a process, and they're very much like rage monster kind of deal.
Oh sure,
They're super strong.
I'm thinking more physically though, rather than
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. They're just
yeah.
like attitude wide, like
No, no.
because they're not like wandering aimlessly, just
Oh no, well
you
not yeah, they're not doing that
shuffling.
either. But we see some of them can even talk. It's not like they're whereas I'm talking more about the craggy parts. It looks like bones are kind of sticking out of parts of their neck
Yeah,
and stuff like
yeah. You
that.
can definitely tell like where they got injured when they died because that part, sticks out, if you will, you know.
Oh, not even just
Um,
that though. There's a couple where they kind of do something to themselves when they're first turning, that make new shapes and weirdnesses to
but
their
yeah,
bodies. You know what I
but
mean?
but I still just the whole attitude of them because I was expecting like zombies like
Hmm.
if it wasn't gonna be vampires it was gonna be zombies, and so
Wait, did you think there was ever
when
going to be vampires in this?
it feels very much like American Vampire. There's an art called Survival of the Fittest where they
Okay,
parachute,
I remember it.
right? Yeah, oh, it's one of my favorite stories in all of comics. Um, and I was just getting vibes the whole time. So the trailer gave me Survival of the Fittest vibes. So I was like, well, they don't have to go that route if it is something more supernaturally based versus zombies, which you can always do with science and whatnot. Um, but yeah, so when they turned out to be these undead creatures and they had a cool design, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. That was a nice surprise.
Yeah. Um. So yeah. I think we could probably go into spoilers now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go into the spoilers. So no. So the main themes of the movie then the idea that Boyce kind of like isn't ready for war, and he kind of has to like essentially step up and actually start, be willing to shoot the other,
Yeah.
the bad guys essentially.
It's almost like coming of age. It's like
Well, no, but it's on both ends though, because the opposite's true for Ford, where he's too far gone, and he needs to learn to pull back a little bit. That you shouldn't go this extreme, and that's kind of completed because by the end of the movie, the main villain who was going to rape Chloe, they kidnap him, of course. What's his name? Wafner, the SS soldier who's in charge of the base, and they keep him captive for a while, and he eventually escapes, and he kills poor Fitz from Agents of Shield, and he injects himself with the serum, the zombie serum, by choice, and the mad German doctor's like, no, it's not ready, Nick, nine, don't do it, and he becomes like this monster. He can still talk, but half of his jaw's missing. It's kind of creepy.
Good look for him, like, because he gets as he's trying to escape, like he gets half of his face blown off, but he still lives. So the doctor is like, well, we've never tried it on living people before. What are you doing? And then so it doesn't exactly heal his face, but it's no longer this big crater that's missing. So it gives him like this ghoulishness, like, he's definitely a bad guy look. And as if the Nazi uniform wasn't enough, like,
basically, so the soldiers go back in because they've kidnapped Chloe's little brother, and Boyce is like, no, we have to try and save the kid, and Ford's like, no, like, our mission's this, we take down the tower, nothing else matters, and he's like, no, I don't give a shit, I'm not taking your order, you know this is the right thing to do, we can do both, we can sneak in the way I snuck out, because in the middle of the film, of course, he ends up in the base kind of by accident, but eventually he agrees, and it's kind of that thing where, okay, right, so a little bit of the heart, and of course, Tibbet, the guy who's been kind of the asshole, kind of warms up to Boyce eventually, and he's been kind of annoyed the whole film because the little kid that's been kidnapped was kind of trying to like be friendly with him, and he was like, go away, you're annoying. But now that he's kidnapped, of course, Tibbet's the one who's going to end up saving his ass, and they're going to bond because that's the heart of the story, right?
That's how it goes.
Yeah, to the point where he runs out into like German gunfire to try and save the kid and gets shot in the process. Survives, but gets shot. So, but the big thing though at the end though is that Ford injects himself with the serum as well when they're fighting. Wafner. I have to keep looking at the name. But they're fighting. I probably should say Wafner because that's how they pronounce their.
Yeah. So when they basically he's trying to rape Chloe and Boyce and Corporal Ford come down and they take him, they hoist him up by ropes and interrogate him, Punisher style, as violently as possible. At least Ford does. So when they're in the base at the end, and Wafner gets his revenge and hangs Ford up on this hook. And that was one part of the movie where I audibly gasped and shifted to my seat because it was visceral, just the sound at play. And Wyatt Russell.
I mean, first of all, you're actually not describing this properly because you sound like he's just put him up on a hook. No, he puts him onto a meat hook into his back, Texas Chainsaw style.
Oh, his front though. It wasn't his back.
Oh, sure, it's his front, but it's still Texas Chainsaw style. Yeah. The way you said it sounded like he just sort of put him up on a hook with his hands like tied.
Oh yeah, no. He hoists him, front rib cage, and he's just dangling there. And so he, as Boyce is getting the Wafner creature, his attention, Ford's able to lift himself up. You're like, oh well, he's a goner. And then he injects himself with the serum, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, now we have Captain America.
But the arc is complete though because he obviously holds his own against them because they're both super powered now, right? They're both zombified, soldiers or whatever, and they're fighting, and then all the other Nazi zombies start waking up because Wafner kind of wakes them all up because they're all in these little, it's like a morgue almost. They've all these drawers, and they all get out, and basically Ford decides, hey, I'm not coming with you, and he locks the door behind Boyce. He's like, okay, you have to go and set the bombs off, make sure they go off. No, I need to stay here because our side can't get this either. Because earlier on in the film, you get the impression that Ford would, because he even says, we have to play as dirty as they do to win. That's war, right? But this is him kind of admitting at the end of his arc where he's saying, no, we actually have to be better, and even our side can't get this. Like, if our side gets this, we'll be just as bad as them, and we can't do that. So that's the completion of his arc. It's him finally realizing that, no, we have to be better, otherwise what's the point of winning?
Yeah, well, because he tells, boys, like, you have to do what's dirty, like, there's a point where he won't take a shot, right? Like, you have to let things go. So they have the sergeant from when they jump, and there's like 6 German officers that have the sergeant surrounded, and Boyce is considering trying to save the sergeant, and Ford stops him. He's like, he was dead as soon as he stepped on the ground, So it was like the things that are necessary to be a soldier. He's all about that, doing what you have to. Things have to let go. But by the end of the movie, him deciding like, oh no, this is whole bad. Like sometimes you can't do everything. And I really like that.
Because there's nothing wrong with what you just described there. Because he's right.
Right.
There was no point in helping him. But
Right.
But the thing is that he was also willing to go further on that. He was willing to sort of lose who he was and to drop his morals in the name of war, in the name of winning. And this was him finally realizing, no, like we can't let our side become this as well. So I have to be down here with everyone else. We have to. And at the end of the movie, when he's being debriefed, Boyce is like, no, there was nothing else down there, nothing weird. It was just the radio equipment and the all that stuff. That was all it was. And the sergeant or whoever's like, yeah, what I figured. And that's the wrap up. Yeah. It's funny. It's an oddly uplifting ending, despite the fact that it's like, oh yeah, we're getting shipped off to go and fight elsewhere in France.
C Company. Yeah.
I'm like, well, I hope you survived that too. But I mean, you did get through the Nazi zombies, so maybe you stand better chance than most.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
I don't know if just because I grew up an Indiana Jones fan, and Nazis are the perfect villain. Like I don't get as excited for other villains as I do with Nazis getting dropped. So there's that scene where they're gonna take the base, and I'm just like, yeah, this is awesome. Like,
yeah, that's the other thing I like in a lot of movies, especially B movies, is the idea that when we're getting into the third act, we have to formulate a plan because the odds are against us because they have to be a story, right?
Right.
So they have to form this plan to get into the base because there's 4 of them, including Chloe at this point.
Right.
And they have to get in. And one of the things they do is the other 2 guys are basically, they've got a turret at the door and they're just mowing down as many as they can, before they go on.
And Tibbet's a sniper because early in the movie he's like, you want to finish the war, you get me within 500 yards of Hitler and that's it. And you think he's just being like talking himself up, but then in this scene you see him just picking him off and you're like, oh no, he's like legit. Like versus Boyce, who we've seen, he's 3 months ago he was cutting his front lawn and then he gets drafted. It feels like Tibbet's actually embraced the soldier of him.
And I like that Chloe recognizes that in him, because when we hear the story about the rat or the mouse that he wouldn't kill, and he tried to set it free, and then all the squad had to do
run hills,
whatever it was. Yeah, like they got punished because he didn't go through with it. When Chloe hears that story, she even makes a point of telling him that she liked that story. And I like the idea that, her parents have both been killed by Nazis. She's there and she's looking after her little brother. Her grandmother's been,
her aunt.
She spent some time in the lab and is all mutated and whatnot. And she recognizes this kindness. It's like she's not seen kindness in so long. And she because when she first runs into him, she tries to stab them because she's scared. As you would be.
Well, she sees these GIs come through and she doesn't know what's going on. Like she's in self-preservation mode.
Yeah.
And that actress, I don't have her name pulled up.
Mathilde Oliver.
Yeah. She was really good, and I haven't seen her in anything else, but I thought she was really good in this.
Probably because she's French, I imagine.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I thought she played that vulnerable well. Like, she was tough, and then once she starts to show those layers, you start to worry about her and her brother. Like, I feel like that's well handled throughout. I mean, I was invested in all the characters. All the ones that make it to the village anyways, because there's that scene that's in just about every war movie where one of the soldiers gets taken out by surprise. In this case, it's a landmine.
Yeah.
As the guy's talking about how he's going to write a book.
Well, no, but that's important. Beyond just the funniness of the book that he's talking about, It's important because it actually makes him a bit of a character. Because up until that point, you don't really know who anyone is other than Boyce and maybe Ford, because they're in the plane, they drop down, and the plane's very visceral because all the bullets are coming through and all the rest of it, and they're jumping out as the plane's basically blown up. And everything's just been shouting, let's move, let's get to where we can. You've not had time to process who anyone really is outside of Boyce, really. So that conversation is designed to make him a character that you not super care about, but just enough to know who he is, that a second later when he just dies out of nowhere because they've been joking around, it actually kind of affects you a little bit. It's like, oh shit, that death actually meant something, despite the fact that, because it was just that one conversation about this dumb book that he's writing that everyone's kind of making fun of him for, and all of a sudden he's gone.
Yeah, and I'm curious if there were any real books like that written after World War II. Because I know from watching from watching the documentary, 5 came back. You know, the U.S. government tried to stifle a lot of what had gone on over there, you know, to control the narrative and stuff. So I'm wondering if that was based on reality, or if, you know, that was just given, like you were saying, to give us a little piece of who this character was before he's blown to pieces. You know? Yeah, no,
I think it was effective in doing that, and then. Obviously there's the one guy who, and I basically remembered him as the Jewish guy because he mentioned if the Nazis catch me, he says, you know what they'll do to a guy named, you know, with my last name, but he's the one that Boyce actually finds in the lab halfway through, because they don't see him at the start. After he's jumped off the plane, we don't see him, and then they've got him on a table with this giant spiked pipe like in his stomach, and Boyce has to rip it out.
To call it a needle, it would be a misnomer, because it's not. Like, it is a full-on pipe, like you were saying.
Yeah. The Nazi lab stuff is almost steampunk in some of its execution.
Yeah. Well, it also, the way that it was shot reminded me of David Cronenberg, like, body horror stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, stuff from The Fly. Like, it doesn't lean away. Like, once you start getting into the ickiness of it, the director just stays on it. And it's like, well, you're experiencing what Boyce is experiencing. So, which I also liked. But yeah, it is very steampunk with these, you know, big syringes full of different colored stuff, and, you know, big lab, you know, accoutrements with vacuum tubes and sacks of fluid and whatnot. So yeah,
very competently directed as well. I feel like all the characters get a chance as well to get some sort of comeuppance. Everyone gets to kill some Nazis, basically, is what I'm saying. Even Chloe probably gets the biggest one, actually, because she gets to, like, she grabs one, because earlier on in the film we see the Nazis burning dead bodies with these big flamethrowers. She actually grabs one of them and burns, like, most of the zombies that are chasing after her throughout the halls, because she's looking for her brother, and she ends up having to run away from the regular zombie kind, if you will.
Yeah, so, like, that was one of the jump scares that got me, is you see something go across the screen, kind of like Alien style. Like, you're not sure what it is, it's just a blur. So you know something's stalking her, and then when it comes out, oh man, it was well executed.
Honestly, my only critique in terms of the suspense and, like, direction is that there's, I think, 2 scenes in the movie where someone's looking through a peephole or an equivalent of a peephole, and you get I bet something's going to jump into the peephole in front of them, and sure enough, it happened both times. And I was like, okay, that was a really predictable jump. There was no, I mean, do something else. So that'd be my one complaint. Chase, Iain the Caesticker's character, I can't say his name, Fitz from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he's a photographer who's also kind of not much of a fighter, and he ends up getting killed he's the guy who gets killed by Waffner when he's escaping. And basically this is after Boyce has come back from the lab, and he stole one of the syringes to show it to the corporal.
To the boys,
and he decides to, because he saw it work in the lab on one of the experiments, he decides to just grab it and see what happens. He just injects it into Fitz.
Oof.
And Fitz gets up, and he's fine at first. And then probably the best... I'd probably say it's the best moment in the film that's to do with the actual horror stuff, the actual, like, body horror stuff, is when he just throws his own head back as if it snaps back the way, and his head's just dangling back over the...
His head's dangling back, and you can see, like, his clavicles that have split.
Yeah.
They're kind of protruding through his skin. They make bumps, and you're just like...
Because even when his head comes back into place, more or less, all the bones that stuck out are still sticking out. They're all still spiky around his sort of collar area. And it's proper interesting looking. They have to gun him down after a couple of minutes because he just tries to kill them.
Yeah, so they realize he's super strong and whatnot because he squeezes the canteen because he comes to and he's super thirsty
Mm.
and he just crushes the canteen like it's a tin can. And then that's the guys kind of are like, oh, this is gonna be a problem. And then it's Boyce who, uh, he's responsible for this. He ends up, destroying the head, zombie movie style.
Oh yeah, because that's the thing.
Uh,
I think it's Ford who actually shoots him, but then he gets back up a second later, and Boyce just stomps in his head until it's mush, until it's not
Goo.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to destroy the brain. That's the rule. You
Yep.
got to destroy the brain.
Yep. If you can't flame broil him, you got to destroy the brain. And so I like that it sets up those rules too, and those rules become consistent at
Mm.
the end when Ford's fighting Wafner, and he's just Wafner who's injected himself with so many different of these syringes. He's
Mm.
like mega powered, like Bane on Venom, and he just keeps coming. Whatever it is, he gets shot up through the chin with a pistol. He keeps coming. He gets burned. He keeps coming. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna take, the church coming down around him to finally keep him down. Uh,
Yeah, no,
so
I
yeah.
was having a blast with all that stuff at the end. I think
Hmm.
I loved that I cared about the characters by the end, and they all had nice little arcs. Not necessarily reinventing the wheel by any means, but just simple arcs that made me care about them to get through the story, and had some heartwarming moments. But I think the biggest thing for me, and the biggest surprise I had, was the fact that no, they didn't go straight to the lab once they landed. It was the horror of landing in the place, and then it was okay. We have to sneak around. We have to hide in the house. Okay, let's form a plan. There's only four of us. What can we do? Oh, the base is up there. It's surrounded by all these things. Oh wait, there's an underground lab. And then after he sees what's in the underground lab, it then changes the direction afterwards. And then by the time we get to the point where Vafna's kidnapped the kid, it's like okay, this is the moral of the story now, or not the moral of the story, but the moral decision in the story. It's like okay, we
Yeah.
can just do what our mission's supposed to be, or we can try and do the noble thing, the right thing that makes us human.
You're right.
And for me, that was that through line in the build up to it, and not just going straight to the crazy, actually seeding it and just
Yeah.
teasing it, and almost having evil before we even get to the otherworldly side of it.
Yeah.
Is what really made it work, I think, for me. But that was a
Yeah.
really solid B movie.
Yeah. I also like too that we never really find out like what this stuff was. Like
Mm.
they kind of hint that it was found underneath the town, like because the Nazis at one point say the French have been sitting, this whole town's been sitting on top of it and they don't even know what they have and whatnot. So I like that there's an air of mystery to it. That's what made me think of a Lazarus Pit from Batman,
Oh sure,
you
yeah.
know, and whatnot. And also, this was supposed to be tied in. Well, not supposed to be. There were rumors that it was tied into Cloverfield, and I'm so glad. Like, there's nothing in here that feels wedged in like they had to. It
Yeah,
really is its own
when you
thing.
say yeah, I don't think it ever actually was really.
No.
I think that was an assumption made because Bad Robot was doing a movie that
Yeah.
had Nazi zombies in it. They were like, oh, is this a Cloverfield movie? And
Yeah.
I think eventually they corrected it. If it ever was, I mean, whatever. The goo they've got in the syringes came from a meteor that landed centuries ago
Yeah.
in the town. Whatever. There you go.
Sure. But I'm just glad that it didn't feel like after the Cloverfield paradox where that was a mess. I'm just glad like they weren't trying to wedge it in there. They just let Overlord be its own thing. And I thoroughly enjoyed it for that. Like you were talking about favorite shots of the movie when it starts, it goes from black and white. It looks like an old propaganda
Mm.
World War II video, and it's got the title over the shot instead of just on black, and it just feels like a movie of the era. And I love that. Has all the planes and the ships, and it goes Overlord in the yellow text.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and there's just like great moments of suspense just before that, like when they're hiding in the attic in the house, and the officers are searching the house,
Oof.
and the guy almost comes up the stairs and just doesn't come up far enough, and they're both sitting there, they're looking through the floorboards, and then they're waiting with the guns, and there's moments like that work. They're tense
Yeah.
before we even get to the otherworldly stuff, and that's usually a good sign. So
Mhm.
this is very good. This is very good.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with some critiques that were more, on the negative side for me, and I don't think there's too many. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like anything else, I think would be just like a nitpick. But I feel like everything's very, tight. Like from the story to the acting to to how it was shot. Like it's just a very well made movie.
I feel like if I was going to critique anything else, because I like that there's a spark between Chloe and Boyce, but they don't necessarily go into they actually have a big kissing
Yeah.
scene where we're in love and blah blah.
No.
It's just kind of a spark. Maybe it'll be something to pick up on later. Maybe it won't be.
Mhm.
But I will say I thought just if I have to critique something, the ending. Is almost. I think there's almost too much of it at the end. Like after they actually win, I don't know if I needed like the guy coming to speak to him and like asking, was there anything else there? Oh, I thought not.
Yeah.
Like I almost felt like you could have just like cut after,
Yeah.
they won basically.
Yeah, you could have. But see, I like the camaraderie there, like with all of them in the tent.
Mm.
You know, so I like that there because most war movies don't get that happy ending, and to me that's what makes it a B movie, right? So it's disassociative.
Not the zombies.
Enough. Yeah, not with zombies. Zombie movies. I remember during Octoberthon, our friend Dan watched Train to Busan, and his girlfriend was like, "Are all zombie movies like this?" And he's like, "Yeah, zombie movies very very rarely end happily." So like there was that lesson there. Like I feel like Shaun of the Dead is one that does, but that's because it's
it's comedy.
that's not really a satire, but yeah, it's more of a comedy. But yeah, so the fact that yeah, they lost some people as this went, but that's war. They were soldiers. So, but no, I really loved Wyatt Russell. Even though at the beginning he felt like, cut, straight from a screenwriting program stock character, I guess you could call it.
He got better as he went, and I like the conclusion to his arc. I do think, though, as a character, he's probably the weakest out of the main bunch for me.
Yeah.
He's not got the charisma his dad has. I'll just say that.
No, but I just felt with some of the stuff, he's just like, I wouldn't call him a versatile actor, but in movies I've seen him in, he never really stands out as like, oh yeah, that's Wyatt Russell doing Wyatt Russell stuff. Whereas I feel he blends in like his dad does. Like there's not really a Kurt Russell thing. Kurt Russell just shows up and is that character. I feel like Wyatt does that. In the ones that I've seen him in.
I don't know if I've seen him in much else to have an opinion on him on a broad range.
You know what I remembered he was in after this was where I forgot he was in was Ingrid Goes West. He was Elizabeth Olsen's husband in that. And yeah, so he just kind of blends in. He was in 22 Jump Street. He was the quarterback, Zook. So yeah, and he's in my favorite episode of Black Mirror 2 in Playtest.
Oh, I wonder why that's your favorite. Wouldn't have anything to do with Bryce Dallas Howard being in it, would it?
No, that's not Playtest.
No, you're right. That's the one before that. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was like.
Fair enough.
I thought you were making a joke because it deals with video games.
No. I thought that was the one before that with Bryce Dallas Howard, and I was mocking your ginger fetish.
Yeah, I do like that one, and I like the moral of that one. But Playtest, it felt like the twists and turns got me on that one, and I felt a lot of it had to do with Wyatt Russell's acting.
I enjoyed that episode a lot, but I mean, Shut Up and Dance and San Junipero were right after it, so I can't give it the season.
Fair. But I mean, I get that. But yeah, so no, I like him as an actor a lot. And my wife likes to go, well, that's just because he's Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell's son. Like, there's something in you, because I grew up watching a lot of Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell movies because my dad. But I go, well, I don't know. I think he's his own guy. Like he makes it work. So, but the guy that played Boyce I hadn't seen before. I thought he was really good. I'd like to see him in more stuff.
I feel like he was familiar. What else has he been? Oh, he was in The Leftovers. That's what I knew him from.
Okay. See, I haven't seen The Leftovers. I know from doing research afterwards. I know he was in Fences, the Denzel Washington movie from last year.
All right, yeah. No, he was in
Mother.
He was in Leftovers, and he was in Mother. I remember recognizing him in Mother actually when I saw it, but I saw that right after I'd just watched Leftovers, or was close to the end of Leftovers.
Also on Jack Ryan. He's going to be in Jack Ryan because that's on. It says 2019. So
there's gonna be season 2 of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like so.
No, he's pretty good. No, solid cast, solid directing. It's a blast. Although I still think you're being too happy about it.
Oh no, I like it. It's in my number one spot as of right now.
Don't
So
spoil what your number.
I'm
Nah.
just hey, Fantastic Beasts comes out this week. That could unseat it. You don't know.
Well,
Like there's
I'm
no
not.
Star
I've not
Wars
even
movie
seen
coming.
it, so it's definitely not topping it for me.
Yeah, well, of course not, Pete. We have different tastes, man. Um,
Oh dear.
but
All right.
but yeah,
Well, I guess we should rate the film then. So
yeah.
what you giving
This is a solid 9 out of 10 for me. I thoroughly enjoyed
it?
it.
um. No, I'll go with a solid 8. Solid 8 out of 10. It is a really good B movie. Solid characters. It's one of the most fun times I've had at the movies this year. Um, and there's very little to complain about, which is very nice. It's a very solid, competently made film, with solid characters, really fun effects, surprisingly strong pacing and script. I was not expecting that, so I'll take it. I'll absolutely
Yeah,
take it.
it makes me want to check out Julius Avery's other movie.
He's not done a
Uh,
lot, actually.
no,
He's
like it sounded like I was knocking him down, but no, you look him up and there's a movie Son of a Gun that stars Ewan McGregor and Brenton Thwaites.
Yep,
It's on Netflix.
and he's working on Flash Gordon next, apparently. So
Yeah, he has something else down the pipe too. More recently than Flash Gordon. Let me click on him. Um, where's it at?
if you're on
Oh,
IMDb, then I
he's just
see it.
yeah. Yeah, no. Oh, it's called The Heavy, which is also him and Bad Robot. And then he's going to be working on Flash Gordon with Matthew Vaughn, who's producing. Which that's a producer director combo I can get behind.
If
Is
only
Matthew Vaughn?
if only I gave a single solitary shit about Flash Gordon.
I know. I wish maybe that's the team that'll make us care.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
as right now, Flash Gordon's kind of a joke. Like, he's got the Queen song, and that's about it. Um, as far as I'm concerned. Uh, but yeah, no, that's a good team. So
All
yeah,
right. No, that is Overlord. It is a blast, and it's not making a lot of money, so go see it. It's good.
yes, please.
If you like genre movies, if you like fun popcorn times, and I say that, and this is a genuinely good fun popcorn time.
Yeah.
This is not me making apologies for something like Transformers 4 and saying, turn your brain
No.
off. No, it's not that at all. Not that I would make
No, not
apologies
at
for that
all.
movie. I'm giving an example of a movie where people say, "Oh, just turn your brain off and have fun." No, you don't have to turn off your brain off if it's bloody well made. It can still have a dumb concept
Yeah.
and be well made and be a well constructed piece of entertainment. They're not
Yeah.
mutually exclusive.
As
So yeah, shut up.
yeah, as much
Basically.
as I love Kong Skull Island, that movie has some massive problems with the characters and some of the story and whatnot, and I
Oh yeah,
still loved it.
this is way better
You
than
know?
Kong Skull Island, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And it's a joke how much I love that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I had
But
fun with Kong Skull Island, but it's
yeah.
definitely, you know, I
Well, I remember you and Connor last year getting thoroughly worried about the placing of it because as we kept getting closer to one and it wasn't showing up, um,
yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
Kong Skull Island. It'd have been nice if I'd cared about the characters in that movie, but
yeah, yeah.
hey ho.
Well, that's what I thought about watching Overlord. Going, I mean, man, imagine Kong Skull Island, but you care what happens to Loki. Like he's an actual fully formed character. Instead of just the B movie like you're talking about. Like it's not as bad as Shut Off Your Brain, but it's just that B movie character that's just like, oh yeah, he's the cool guy. He's the guy that's seen it all.
Oh yeah,
So
there's nothing more to him than that, or
yeah,
Larson for that matter. But anyway, that is us. That has been 1.21 gigawatts, and we've been talking about Overlord. It's very good. So yeah, if you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can support this show and everything else we do. You get some stuff early, you get some bonuses, you get other things. It's worth having a look. So go have a look at that, and you can get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. You can get me on Twitter at Wibble89. You can get Matt on Twitter at MattofSteel57. Otherwise, guys, like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments if you've seen it. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and we'll see you next time.